Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I'm Andrew Scaff. He's Mike Werman. Today we'll get to the continuing awful season of the Kansas City Royals. Talk a little bit about the Belmont stakes and the NFL news. But we'll open today's show with the NBA and NHL finals now being completed. Maybe we'll start with the NBA.
Sure.
And Mike, what did you find more impressive about this series? The maybe dominant wins from Denver, taking the four in just 5 games, or did you find it more impressive to have like the 30, 20, 10 triple double from Jokic in the same game where his teammate also had a 30-point triple double? What did you find
Yeah,
interesting from the
that
final?
was really something. I thought I think it was game three
Mm,
that they had the Jamal Murray and Jokic had those kind of insane triple doubles. But it was like um yeah, I thought the series as a whole wasn't that compelling because there weren't that many. I guess there was one close game with the Heat pulled out,
mm,
but the rest of them they weren't like blowouts, but they weren't like super close either. And it only went five, so it wasn't like a really dramatic series. And it
right.
was one of those series where we thought the one team that was better was a decent amount better than the other team, and it turned out to be the case. I
Mm,
guess the surprise was maybe that the Heat won in Denver rather than winning in Miami, since um,
yeah.
Denver is not necessarily seen as like the best road team. They have that big home field advantage being in the altitude. But I didn't find this. I guess I found it impressive Denver's run through the playoffs and their ability to close out games and win when they should. And but I didn't find the series that compelling. Partly, I guess, because the individual games, none of them, like only one or two of them were really good. Like in terms of like close games, like like you had said in game, was it? I think it was game three when um, Murray and um, uh, Jokic
Jokic.
had
The triple doubles, yeah.
their triple doubles was something. But
34, 21, and 10 though for a single game is
yeah,
crazy anyway.
that's impressive. He's one of the best players in the world, of course. Yeah. So
And
Jokic had 30.
maybe
Yeah,
maybe
30.
should have been the MVP this season, right?
Yeah, he was 32. He won. It was last year, I guess, right? Did he win this year
Yeah.
too? Who was the MVP this year? Oh, it was Joel Embiid. Yeah, you're not an
Yeah.
Embiid. You're not an Embiid guy. Yeah, he was 30. Yeah, 32, 21, and 10. And then I guess Murray was 34, 10, and 10. So it
Oh,
was
Murray
like
at 34. Oh, yes, that's
Murray
right.
had 34, 10, and 10. So like as well as like one off, one different would be a triple double. So it's one of those things where like a triple double is kind of an imaginary
Yeah.
stat because like it really like isn't being score 30 30 if Jokic had 40 points and 20 rebounds but only 9 assists, that's not a triple double. But if he had 10 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, that would be a triple double, like, which is a
Yes.
better game. It's a little like
Yeah.
hitting for the cycle, I think. it's
Oh,
it's
I think it's more like the quality start in baseball. Because really
I
it's
think
who
it's
cares, but
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's definitely a mark of a good game, but it's not necessarily a triple double. I don't think is something that necessarily should be its own stat because
yeah.
it's well, it's interesting, but it's not like I don't know. These are it just happens to be this interesting combination because like, it can also be a triple double with other stat lines like blocks or steals could count
Yes.
for it,
Yeah.
and
But not
I
fouls.
not fouls. Yes, you can only have up to six fouls. At least the way the NBA currently is. I'm not sure
Right.
if it's. I don't know when the six foul rule began, but probably back But you can only
And and it can't be turnovers, I don't think either. So
yeah, you don't want a negative stat. Yeah, turnovers. Yeah, missed shots.
yeah. I mean, they could include those as
Mhm.
potential
Yeah. Like,
triple
what?
doubles.
Why wouldn't they? Or field goal attempts. Why don't they include that in as part of the
Yeah.
as part of the double? but yeah, or I think some of it was. Do you think the triple double was popularized at all by Ice Cube in Today Was a Good Day because he messed around
Got
last
triple double.
week and got a triple double?
Yeah,
But that was
absolutely.
already it was already a phrase then. But do you think it
Yeah,
was popularized as a kind of general term
yeah.
by
I
Ice
think it
Cube?
was more of like yeah, media popularized, and then it got picked up in other other realms then too as being a making the term elevated, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, it's probably it's much less meaningful than contributing to your team to win than
yeah.
contributing to
Do you,
your own stats though too, right? So
yeah, it's sometimes it's an individual stat type of thing that necessarily doesn't necessarily always mean. I guess usually if you have triple double, your team's probably doing pretty well because you've got a lot of assists, a lot of rebounds. Do you know who leads
typically.
the league in the? You know who's number one in league history in triple doubles? As an active player, is number one in history in triple doubles. But it's not who you. Well, maybe
Oh,
it's
I
who you
do
think,
know this,
but
and
it's not who you would think is the best player.
right. Oh no, I can't think who it is. Who is it?
Russell Westbrook.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, Westbrook. Yeah.
Russell Westbrook has 198
Yeah, that's
career
right.
triple doubles. He passed Oscar Robertson
Yeah.
first place. Oscar Robertson has 181. Um, and Magic Johnson is third with 138. LeBron and Jason Kidd are tied with 107. Jokic already is number 7 all time in triple doubles
Wow.
with 105. So I would guess that he will pass.
Probably
Um,
all. Maybe he'll probably pass LeBron next year, and
yeah, he's only 2 behind LeBron right
yeah.
now. And I would guess he would pass everybody. Well, I guess we have a couple more, probably 2 or 3 more years maybe for Westbrook playing, and so he probably I don't know, but it's one of those things. Yeah, so like Jokic is um, really high up. Um, Wilt Chamberlain's number 8, James Harden number 9, Larry Bird number 10, Luka Doncic is number 11 with 56.
Yeah, so he'll contend for the
Um,
top end of that by the end
yeah,
of his career, I would assume.
yeah, probably. Number 12 is Fat Lever. Do you remember what Fat was short for?
I have no
Fat Lever,
idea.
the Denver Nuggets, former Nuggets. He played. I remember mostly for the Nuggets. He played in the '80s and early '90s. He was Lafayette. Fat
Oh,
Lever.
that's not what I was going to assume. No, I didn't know. I just assumed it was just a straight nickname. It had nothing to do with.
No, he wasn't very fat. He
I
was.
assumed it was
He
just like a
was.
very skinny kid, and then you know,
Oh,
the like the opposite sort of nickname, like stretch
oh. I
or
wonder if that was part of
slim,
it.
something like that. That's what I was just assuming, right?
I assumed it came from Lafayette, but maybe I'll. No, okay. So it says he was born in Arkansas, the second of 3 sons. He was nicknamed Fat by his younger brother, who had problems saying all of the syllables in
Yeah,
his name. So Fat. Okay. So
yeah,
it was
yeah,
from his name, but he was a skinny guy.
yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't like a fat guy called Slim. I don't know if you, um, or was Minnesota fat?
I thought so. That's how I've always assumed he was. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, he was fat. Okay.
Yeah,
Do you know Minnesota Fats? Uh, well, there's a real Minnesota Fats and there's a fake Minnesota Fats. So the real Minnesota Fats, well, I think the Minnesota Fats was originally he was played by Jackie Gleason in The
yeah,
Hustler with Paul Newman. So, but there was also a actual pool player
yeah.
known
That the character is
as
sort of based off of, right?
I think, or maybe it was the no, he took the name from the character,
Really?
but he claimed that the character was based on him. So I don't know. It's one
Yeah.
of those things where like, do you believe like are you gonna believe the word of a pool player whose job probably before professional pool was a thing was hustling people and
Yes.
and things like that. So I would guess, yeah, I'd say the jury's out on that. But he was his name Minnesota Fats was named Rudolph Wanderon.
Fast.
Rudolph Walter Wanderon.
No.
Um, he was never from Minnesota.
Yeah, that's what I assumed.
Grew up in New York, but he was Swiss German. And so in 1961, the film version of the novel The Hustler was released in Minnesota Fats. And apparently, Von der Rohe was known as New York Fats sometimes before that. And he decided to become Minnesota Fats.
Hmm.
And um, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he was a Swiss German, but he was also so his nicknames included Minnesota Fats, New York Fats, Broadway Fats, Chicago Fats, Double Smart, and Triple Smart Fats. I'm not sure. Yeah, so he was. That's a lot of nicknames.
Yeah.
Um, but he was pretty fat. But in his, there's some pictures of him in older age. He seemed to have lost a lot of weight as he got older, and he was only like, um, he wasn't really that fat when he was old. But
Hmm.
and even like fat guys back then aren't as fat as fat guys today. So like
Yeah.
they're just like you and me. Probably they'd be called.
Yeah. But Minnesota Fats is a much better nickname than like, Minnesota moderately overweight, I
Yeah,
guess, right? That's that might be.
or even New York Fats. I guess I
Yeah.
think the um, but yeah, he was in Minnesota. The character the guy Rudolph von der Rohe, he died in 1996 as Minnesota Fats, but he was um anyway. But back to the triple double stats.
Yes.
So Lafayette Fat Lever, then Giannis is number 13,
Okay.
but
He's pretty young still, so
he's played more seasons than either Doncic or Jokic ahead of him, so he's not gonna probably pass those guys.
well, so maybe what do you find more impressive then as just a general individual stat? The triple double, the hat trick in hockey.
I think the hat trick in hockey is more impressive because it's 3 goals scored, and goals are hard to come by. And I would say, like, points in basketball, like there are, if you score 100 points, and if you score 10 points out of those 100, that's not like, or 20 or 20, even 30 is a really impressive, I think, number to get.
Yeah.
But like 10 assists, well, probably there are probably 35 to 40 assists probably in each
Or
basketball game by each team, do you think?
there were 39 assists in tonight's decisive or yesterday's decisive NBA final.
Okay, because like some of the shots are like putbacks, some are free throws, but like
Right.
a lot of them are going to have assists, rebounds, missed shots. There's always going to be a lot of rebounds. So like
Yeah.
I would say like hockey, like usually there are only sometimes 3, 4, 5, 6 goals, and if you have 3 of them, that's half your team. That's like sometimes more than half your team's total. So like I would
Yeah.
say that the goal scoring a hat trick, like soccer especially, is probably the most impressive. But
Well, and
hockey,
in
I think,
hockey, you're not on the ice. But you were close to the whole game. Like you may only play like a quarter to a third of the game
yeah, because there's
in
those
total
line shifts
time.
and things. You're
Or at least in soccer, you're on the field for most of the game. But once you come out, you can't come back in, right? So
yeah, but like most of the you'll be on, especially before in like the pre-modern substitution rules where like you can only have 3 or maybe even fewer subs. Now there's like 5 because of COVID, I think, and they've
yeah,
decided to keep that, right, in a lot of leagues. So yeah, I would say that the hat trick is more. I guess technically you're not playing the whole game of basketball either, but some guys do
yeah,
play uh
more
40
minutes than others
plus
at least
minutes.
anyway. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think especially earlier in the um like you know not in the last over the last several years, but there's been a lot more rest for top players. But in Jordan's era or whatever, he probably played 42 minutes out of 48, probably most nights.
yeah.
And so I think the triple double is it's in some ways it's a kind of interesting tidbit, but it's not necessarily, I think, a great stat because yeah, what's better is it 30 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, or is it 35 points, 11 rebounds, 9 assists? Like what's it like? Why is one considered to be this thing that we should record,
Yeah.
and the other not. Like that's why it's just kind of like hitting for the cycle, like hitting, you know, a single, a double, a triple, and a home run. It might look kind of neat, but hitting two doubles, a triple, and a home run is a better game than hitting a single double.
Yes.
Or like, if you do it by total bases or whatever, so like
Yeah.
it's one of those things that has a kind of a round.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, also you can say, well, if it is indicative of being like the best player, why is Russell Westbrook on top?
Right. Right. Well, and a lot of Westbrook's triple doubles are because he was the primary scorer and offensive linchpin for the teams he was on. So, like, if he didn't get a triple double, the team was going to lose, right?
Yeah,
Well,
that's
a lot
true.
of those years, anyway. But
Yeah, but he was a great, he is and still is a pretty good player. But like
Mhm.
he played for Oklahoma City in the years after Harden left and after Durant left,
Yeah,
and got a lot of those and kind of had to carry the team. So like, it's a little interesting that maybe that he has more of like a significant amount more of those than like LeBron has. Um, and you wonder, is like the triple double, was that something that Westbrook chases? Like, will he intentionally try to get that? And like, like, is he missing shots and getting his own rebound to a
like to pad the stat.
get the two? Yeah, or is
Yeah,
he like, you know,
but the NBA has been like relatively protective of the triple double because they have like taken away rebounds from players that weren't like legitimate rebounds because there were times like where a player would just kind of like throw the ball at the rim themselves
yeah,
and then grab it, and they've taken some of those away in the past to in some way protect the validity of the triple double as a stat. So I think the league actually does care at least a little bit, about that.
yeah, yeah, I guess, yeah, it seems like something that Westbrook prided himself on,
Yeah.
because he had 11 straight triple doubles in 2019 at one point. It says three of the four longest streaks in NBA history were by Westbrook. So like, that's a, yeah, it's one of those things that I think is a good stat. But yeah, well, I don't know if you want to go back to the Heat Nuggets. What did you were you was there anything in the series that you thought was interesting or worthwhile, or was it a kind of humdrum
Yeah, I mean
five?
it didn't ever really get that intense, I don't think. Yeah, because it seemed like Miami kind of like made some runs a few different times, but it seemed like they couldn't really put like long strings of scoring together because Denver was just so dominant at being able to break up some of those like long runs anyway. So like the games, yeah, didn't weren't terribly exciting, but that's kind of what made Denver's dominance was on display the whole time too. So they played really well. I mean, it wasn't controversial. I mean,
No,
they won and they looked like the better team and won decisively.
yeah, and you wonder. I guess maybe you would think, well, would Denver have done as well if they had played one of the top seeds in the East rather than playing the eighth seed? Was Miami just kind of out of gas at that point?
Yeah, but I mean, Miami handled all the teams that they faced, so it's
Yeah,
if Denver handled Miami well, so
yeah, yeah. It's a
it
fair,
seems
yeah,
like this was Denver's year, the way that they played in the playoffs, at least anyway, right?
yeah. You can't argue with the result they won,
Yeah,
and it wasn't like there were like fluke. It's a seven, with the 7 game series. It's, even if there's one weird game, you can overcome it by. It's not like NFL playoffs or something like that, where sometimes you have this kind of fluke
they're all one and done.
Super Bowl opponent,
Yeah,
and or like you think of the '85 Chicago Bears playing the New England Patriots and just blowing them out, and like the Patriots weren't expected to be in the Super Bowl, they kind of got into it, and then they were kind of exposed by the Bears.
yeah,
30 years ago. Think of some of those teams like the ones that a lot of those Cinderella stories, they end abruptly, and
yeah.
I guess this was kind of one of those that they just ran into a better team,
Yeah.
and yeah, like I think the Nuggets were deserving champions, but like it wasn't a particularly compelling series to me.
Yeah.
But I did predict them to win in five, so I feel good
Spot
about
on.
that. I was spot on.
Yeah.
Unlike the NHL, which I have missed again on the series, I predicted the Panthers to win in seven, but it became clear tonight that the Knights would actually win in five, blowing out the Panthers in game five, 9-3. You were the winner of this since you did not pick the Panthers. You actually just kind of went against whatever I was going to go against. So I think I cursed
Yeah.
the Panthers either way, or cursed the Panthers this way. And so are you did you watch much of the Stanley Cup finals?
Yeah, I watched a lot of it, and yeah, a lot of the games there were pretty close too, but yeah, Vegas again, just especially tonight, absolutely dominant. 9 goals. The game is a crazy high total for a finals game. Um and it seemed as though, yeah, Florida was kind of done. I think, their top player had been injured earlier in the
Mhm.
series and was limited in game 4. Uh and that's Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah.
And then he was unavailable for tonight's game, and that apparently made a big difference too, because he was their, yeah, Florida's top player all around,
Mm-hmm.
and had been the guy that had scored all the late, like, game winners, overtime clinching goals too, in the
Yeah.
their magical playoff run. But yeah, it was really amazing how paralleled the NBA and NHL playoffs were, really throughout, with the, both of the semifinals were like almost the same. I think the same seeds had won on both, and they looked like they were all going to be sweeps, and the 1 seeds finished their sweeps, and then the 8 seeds won the other semifinal matchup. And then they didn't end in the same number of games. They were close though, right? It was like, um
In the
the NBA
conference
went to
final.
7, and in the conference in the conference
Yeah.
final, yeah,
And it
the
went to six.
NBA
It
went
went
to
to
7, went
six.
to 6 in the NHL, and then so it was a 1 versus an 8 in both leagues. Both of these games ended up going exactly 5 games, with the 1 seed winning 4-1. So there are like some
Mhm.
really interesting parallels between the two finals, and as they're being played essentially simultaneously, between the two leagues, and they really have nothing to do with each other, but the
Yeah.
parallels were really interesting, at least.
And like, yeah, you would say like Florida teams were both eight, or the South Florida teams were both the eight seeds. Um,
Vegas,
Western
Utah.
landlocked uh, metropolitan areas were the homes of the Western one seeds that won,
Mhm.
the Denver and Las Vegas. So like, um, yeah, it was yeah, there were some interesting parallels. The NHL. I think when the Panthers didn't pull out game four,
Yeah,
they seemed kind of done. So like you said, Kachuk was hurt and not playing, and it was um, back in Vegas, and I guess both home teams won in at home in Game Five.
hmm
So that was another parallel. Yeah, it was yeah, there were yeah, I think both the playoffs overall were fun to watch, but yeah, then like the finals weren't terribly riveting,
yeah,
but I think the team that won probably deserved to win. It's one of those things like where you hope not just fans, but probably networks also hope that it goes seven, because then you could sell more tickets and more games and more advertising revenue.
right.
You want a longer series. I guess they weren't sweeps, which was good at least, but
Yeah,
yeah, it was something that yeah they, yeah I'm yeah I don't I hope that when baseball around to it, their playoffs are as fun,
yeah.
and but
Maybe not overwhelming, but also not underwhelming. Just whelmed. Is that what you're saying? You're
yeah, I
whelmed.
think in some ways you would have wanted the top, like in terms of probably network eyes, like they would have preferred in the NBA for sure. A Lakers Celtics final would have been much more interesting. Maybe for an NBA fan, probably Denver because Jokic is such a talented young player. But
Yeah.
hockey, maybe you also would want like colder climate teams or Canadian teams,
At least have a
maybe.
Canadian team make it deep enough into the tournament to make it
Yeah,
interesting, right?
yeah. So they didn't. Yeah, the Maple Leafs. Uh, yeah, like I think the two kind of favorite Eastern Conference teams that probably the average person might have wanted would be the Bruins because they had such a great season,
Hmm.
and then the Maple Leafs because they've been so star-crossed over the years, and they're
Yeah,
a Canadian team. The Panthers beat both of them, and really nobody wants Florida hockey except maybe some people in Florida, and
some.
yeah,
Right.
and somewhat similar for Vegas, although you could, it's they didn't they meet Dallas in the I guess Dallas is it's a little more hockey.
Historical anyway,
So
with the team
yeah, but
franchise there
not
that's been around
really.
for a while. No.
Yeah. So like it was probably not the teams that the NHL would have wanted at the beginning of the season in the finals either. But I think it was I think the playoffs were pretty well played and they were fun to watch when you watched. And
Yeah.
even if it wasn't didn't maximize all of the drama, but it was still pretty good.
So maybe before we move on to the next topic, between the Denver Nuggets and Vegas Golden Knights, which of these two teams would you think is more likely to go back to the finals next year in their respective sports? Either of them? Neither of them? Both of them?
I think Denver's more likely, partly because I think hockey's a little more chaotic in terms of its results.
In the
There
playoffs,
aren't
especially.
there aren't as many points scored. So like each goal is worth more, and a goal is hard to come by. Like a hot goalie one night can really change things. Where like in the NBA, you'll have, you know,
Unless you're
maybe
scoring
you'll have,
9 a game like that, like Vegas did
yeah,
today. If you score 9 a game, you're probably going to win a lot.
yeah. Like I would say the NBA is more like it's one of those things where like it's like fractional numbers add up as time goes on. So
Yeah.
just like something that's more accurate than like if you're rounding them off. And like if you need, if like each goal, like let's say some shots you have a 30% chance of making the shot a goal, and that becomes a goal. But then like in the NBA, well, if you keep shooting 30% volume types of shots, well, it's more and more likely that you're only going to make 30 out of 30 out of 100. But but I think in hockey there's random fluctuations, kind of like soccer. Like lots of times
Yeah.
a team in soccer will dominate a game, but there's one goal that's the other team scores, and the other team, and then like they lose 1-0 even though they're the better team. Hockey gets a little bit like that because there aren't that many goals. So, but basketball, if you're the better team, you're usually going to be scoring more points than
Yeah.
it's not that hard to score points.
Well,
Um,
and Denver's stars seem to be pretty durable too. So that's a big advantage they have in the NBA, at least anyway, is that staying on the court as much as possible gives your team a much better chance to win.
yeah, and maybe you could say the Western Conference is a little easier right now than the East, or maybe just that the stars in the West right now are older. And you would think, well, maybe
Mm,
next year they're going to be even a little
it's
bit
an
older.
aging West. Yeah.
Yeah, so like LeBron's getting old, Durant, and some of the Phoenix guys were old, but Jokic and Murray are pretty young. Some of the Phoenix guys are still pretty young too, but like I would say that the East seemed to have a little bit more talent than the West. It's not
Mhm.
quite as maybe dramatic as like the AFC versus the NFC right now in football, where like all the good teams seem to be in the AFC, and
Yeah.
there's like two
Well, because
good
all the
teams
good
and
quarterbacks are in the
all the good quarterbacks in the
AFC.
AFC, and there's like two good teams in the NFC,
Yeah.
and the rest is pretty blah. Yeah.
Right.
And you can have like a mediocre quarterback and still be a pretty good team in the NFC, where you can't do that in the AFC. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, Yeah, it's so I think Denver's more likely. Would you agree, or do you think the Knights are destined for a repeat?
Yeah, well, I mean, they were in the finals not that long ago, in their first year as a franchise. So, I mean, it seems like they're probably gonna be around at least anyway. I don't think they're gonna break it up, and disperse the team. But I think yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. You're exactly right though. Is that in the NHL, especially the playoffs tend to be very chaotic, and your odds of getting through the playoffs are pretty difficult. And yeah, the NBA, if you're the better team, you're probably gonna make it through. So as long as Denver keeps the team together and keeps everybody relatively healthy, it'd be surprising if they're not at least in the conference finals next year, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I guess like um, the the Knights have some good young players too, like Eichel, and he's still pretty young, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Eichel, he's like, but yeah, a lot of their guys are still on the young side, and I think could come back too. But yeah, it's good. I think yeah, the NBA is more predictable in its playoffs usually, and yeah, it's a little bit of a crapshoot in the AHL.
Yeah.
Uh, Speaking of
Crap.
unpredictability and crap, predictable crap. You want to talk about the Royals? I was thinking we might talk about the Belmont stakes being unpredictable, but we're just going to the crap. We can just go to the Royals. Let's talk about the
I
Royals.
thought that was like I was surprised by that. And I thought that's where you were going. I was like, wow, no, that wasn't what
It would
you're
have been, it actually would have been better probably, your idea. But you want to do Royals? Get it out of the way.
whatever. It's fine. Go for it.
Well, maybe we'll talk about past results because we're talking about future stuff when we talk about the Royals mostly. So we'll talk about past. And we'll finish
Yeah.
like the Belmont Stakes were run. We had
Championships. We're talking about championships right
talking
now.
about championships. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we'll keep that. So the third leg of the Triple Crown, there was no eligible Triple Crown uh, winner because Mage had lost in the Preakness
Right.
um,
And then did he
to
run
National Treasure. He did not run in
in the
the Belmont.
Preakness? They didn't run the Belmont. Yeah.
He did not run the Belmont, but his jockey Javier Castellanos uh, rode another horse in the Belmont Stakes and actually won on Arcangelo, who was kind of a dark horse winner, and Arcangelo and won the Belmont Stakes, and Castellanos won his career Triple Crown. He had won the Kentucky Derby this year and then won, I think, maybe two Preaknesses or maybe a Kentucky Derby and a Preakness before, and had and won the Belmont this year. So his career Triple Crown was completed as a jockey, which is impressive. And perhaps most notable that I was surprised at was the uh, trainer of Arcangelo was Jenna Antonucci, and she was the first woman to win the Triple Crown as a trainer, run any Triple Crown race as a trainer. And they've been run for 150 plus years, each of them.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where like it seems like it's purely sexism because like
Yeah.
how is like training a horse, like you wouldn't think that there's a man would be able to do it any better than a
Yeah.
woman. So like it just seems like it just maybe a I guess horse keeping kind of old boy horse training kind of old boys club. And but Antonucci, she broke through and was the first
Oh.
uh, woman to win, and she's yeah, so that was something I think with Jenna Antonucci and Arcangelo, who was uh, a what was his where his odds were 7-1,
Hmm.
at least at one point 7-1. So he not running either of the previous legs, and but he had one at Belmont before in May, at the Peter Pan Stakes, but it was a shorter race than the Belmont, which is a mile and a half. Or as we learned last week, 12 furlongs,
Yes.
uh, and the longest of any of the Triple Crown
Or
races.
120 chains, was that right?
Yeah, something like that. Yes, chains in a
Poles. Because poles and chains were the same, right? Wasn't that what it was? Anyway.
no, poles and rods are the same.
No. No, no, I don't want to. I don't want to bring this back up again. I'm sorry I said anything. Never mind.
Okay. Yeah, chain. So there are. Oh, we won't spend that much time. But yeah, there are. Yes, you're right. There are 10 chains in a furlong. You're right.
Okay.
22 yards in a chain, 220 yards in a furlong. Um, but there are 40 poles in a furlong. So I guess there are
Oh,
four
right. It was four. It's four poles
rods
per
in
chain.
4 rods/poles in a chain. And
Yes.
then yeah. We'll get these down and we'll be able to, and all of our listeners and viewers will understand all these as we go along.
Yes.
And
Our
then
long running weights and measures segments.
yes. The Belmont States race is also half a league long because a league is 3 miles.
Oh,
We didn't get to the longer
we did not go longer than that. No. A league. Okay.
league. Yeah. And I always and that was interesting. Like the book 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea,
Yeah.
it referred to a distance traveled underwater rather than being deep
Yeah.
underwater, which as a kid I would have guessed it meant deep,
Oh,
but it just means distance traveled underwater.
really?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a lot lamer that way because it's like okay, I guess we traveled 60,000. I guess that's a lot. That's like 3 times, almost, you know, more than 2 times around the circumference of the Earth. Although you can't just go around the circumference of the Earth in a submarine because you'll run into land, so you have to do a little bit of a different
Yeah.
thing. But yeah, so it's but yeah, 20,000 leagues under the sea was just it's 60,000 miles. Although maybe a French league is different from an English
Oh. Uh-oh.
league, um, and it's something we'll have to look up, I guess. League unit. So 3 miles. Okay, so Europe, Latin America, no longer official, derived from an ancient Celtic unit adopted by the Romans as a leuga. It sounds like one of those old car horns.
Yes.
Leuga.
Absolutely.
Reminds me of that Seinfeld episode when Kruger, when George worked for Kruger and the K fell off, or the R fell off and it was Cayuga. Yeah, it's like one of those old car horns. But originally, it seems like it was the distance a person could walk in an hour.
Hmm.
I guess go about 3 miles an hour.
Yeah, no,
Travel.
that's about right. Yeah. 20
Yeah,
minutes for a mile or so. Yeah. For
yeah,
walking. Yeah. Well, that's pretty normal.
yeah.
Yeah.
But in different places, league is the French league is anywhere from 2.02 to 2.91 miles. So a metric league was used in France from 1812 to 1840, with one metric league being exactly 4,000 meters or 2.5 miles. And that is the unit referenced in the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It's the old French metric league, spelled Ligue, like the soccer League One.
Yes.
And so that is the league
And
in
what was it? What was
20,000
that?
leagues. 2.5 miles. So in
2.5.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, it's only 50,000 miles. So I guess maybe that's like, you think that's two of the Earth's, so Earth's circumference is about 25,000 miles. So I guess
Yeah.
that's 2 trips.
Right. Hmm. Well, you did mention that was the first female trainer
Mhm.
won
Yes.
a
Yeah,
uh
Jenna Antonucci.
yeah, won a Triple Crown race. So have there been female owners that have won Triple Crown
Yeah, I
races?
was looking that up earlier, and there have been. It's hard to say because lots of times the owners are like in a group, or it's like a husband and wife team that
Hmm.
own them. But in some of the early Triple Crown races, early 20th century, one of the big owners was a woman, and her name was Fanny Hertz, which
Come on.
I until you had laughed at that name, I was I didn't think that was that interesting, but I guess yeah, it makes fun. It is
You're on like a
funny.
joke website or something, right? This isn't. No, really? That was. Yeah.
Yeah, John, the wife of John D. Hertz, the American businessman, who was born in Hungary as Sándor Hertz. Um, Hertz is most famous. Mr. Hertz was most famous for being the namesake of Hertz Car Rental. He had
Oh,
started as an amateur boxer, then a newspaperman, then he was a cab driver, then he owned a bunch of cabs, and then he owned this rental car company. And so that was his name. But his wife, Frances Fanny Hertz, um, and I guess that's probably what a lot of jockeys might having a lot of jockeys if you ride a horse too long. At least the American Fanny uh, would that would happen.
yeah.
But yeah, Fanny Hertz
The name would probably be
owned.
even more amusing to a British person, though.
Yes. Well, yeah, I guess it's
We would sort of like
for
childishly chuckle at that, but yeah, the Brits would
a
even
man. I
more
guess
childishly chuckle at that one.
yeah, I think it's more a little more prurient
More vulgar, I think. There.
in British
Yeah.
usage. Um, but yeah, so Fanny Hertz. Um, yeah, so they had a couple of um, horse races. So they won the Kentucky Derby a couple times, and were yeah. So Fanny Hertz was the namesake owner of the horses. Well, John Hertz was the ran his car rental business, and John D. Hertz. Yeah. So anyway, so they were female horse owners at least, but that's but like like as part of the um um actual kind of working with the horses and
Yeah.
things like that. Women are kind of kept out of things. I don't know if any.
Or at least at that level they had been historically, maybe. I don't. Yeah,
Yeah,
that seems.
there's
Or maybe
only
they just
actually
weren't
been
credited, or I don't. I don't know. That seems
there's only been
crazy.
one woman as a jockey ever to win a triple crown race. That was
Yeah,
Julie Crone, who won the Belmont Stakes in 1993. So it's been you
I
know
sort of remember that story like popping up.
yeah. So it's a
Yeah,
little like it's one of those things where like this seems primarily it's just cultural slash discriminatory. The men in these races, it's not like like I don't know if there's really much of a difference between a I don't think there's not like physical labor that a jockey has to do like that a man can do that a woman can't, because again it's like jockeys are very very little people usually,
yeah,
and you would say well more women are probably the size of a jockey than a man, and we think of women as equestrian horseback, right? Like in the Olympics and the equestrian
yeah, yeah.
competitions, men and women compete as there's no separate men's and women's
Oh,
competition. I don't think, at least in a lot of the races or the jumping events and things like that. So I think it's just something that is uh, cultural, and maybe probably that women are not really girls aren't really pushed into that sort of thing or something like that. Especially now, I think a lot of especially because a lot of the jockeys are from Latin American countries that are impoverished and probably more sexist in their culture than we are here, and so it's probably become more maybe even more of a thing where there are more men that do some of those things than women. But
hmm.
because yeah, Castellano I think is from I'm not sure where Castellano is from. Is he from Venezuela maybe or Puerto Rico? I can't remember. I'm looking it up right now. Venezuela. He's from Venezuela. Yeah. Um, so yeah, so like it's you would say probably in those areas that it's more of a chauvinistic or macho kind of culture that involves horse racing than in the United States even. And but yeah, so Bajena Andrucci won with Arcangelo, and that's something I think that's notable. Did you watch any of the Belmont? Do you have any other
Totally
comments
forgot. I
about
didn't watch it again.
horse
Yes.
racing? Okay. Well,
I was going to
I
say
guess
though, moving to one other topic that we hadn't really talked about before here, there was one more championship over the weekend, one significant milestone. Novak Djokovic won the French Open and broke the men's record for Open titles, 23. Where do you think he falls now in the men's tennis history? He has the most. Is he the best?
I don't think so. I'm still Camp Federer as the best. Nadal, I think there's an argument being made for Nadal,
Mm.
but I think Nadal is so much of like he's heavy on the French. I guess you could say that Djokovic was he
I think
won
it was
several on
balance. I
each.
think he won at least three of each of the four
Yeah.
opens, which I think is the only. I think he's the only to have done that.
Yeah, but it seems like he racks up a lot of Australian Opens, which
Yes,
which
that's
is
true.
like the least of the four. He
Yeah,
has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 are Australian Opens. And that seems like, and he's sort of a dick. So I don't really like Djokovic and his like anti-vax stuff. And like,
yes,
so he was, and he also kind of came up, he was younger than both Nadal and Federer. So like when he was playing against both of them, they were older and kind of on the downslope of their career.
right.
Federer kind of had it worse because he was when Nadal and Djokovic had their ascendancy, he was also kind of on the downhill of his career
Mm.
and kind of had to really battle to keep up his second stuff. I think Federer's play was the most um, artistic and like kind of thoughtful and lovely. I think Nadal had had this kind of motor and was a you know never gives up kind of player, and
Yeah,
Djokovic I guess is I don't know what he is. He's just really good, and but I don't like the only personality that he has is not pleasing to me. So I just don't like him, and
that's
so
fair. That's
I'm
fair.
not gonna put him above either Nadal or Federer. I could see ranking Nadal above Federer, but personally for me, I would put Federer one, Nadal two, Djokovic. Is that what would you? Even though the number of majors is a little different for each,
Right,
like Nadal will play next year in the French Open and might tie or come back. So I think you know Federer's done now, but I still
right.
like.
Yeah, Federer was my favorite. Also, yeah, just such a smooth player though. Like everything
Mhm.
was he just looked effortless all the time. That's what I always thought was really impressive. Is looked like he wasn't even trying most of the time, and was just dominating everybody
Yeah,
for like long stretches of time anyway. So yeah, he
yeah,
was really impressive
yeah. Federer's only weakness was on clay, but that was also
against
because
Nadal.
but he played Nadal like at his height every time, and so he
Yeah.
only won one French Open, but he won one, two, three, four, five, six Australians, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight Wimbledons, one, two, three, and five U.S. Opens. So he won a lot of each of them
Mm.
except the French, and so I don't I and he played mostly against um, Nadal at his peak. And basically, Djokovic has won a lot of French Opens lately because Nadal has been absent or not playing.
Yeah. And the next, guy hasn't
Yeah,
appeared yet, right? That's gonna be challenging him for titles. Where, at the tail end of like you said, like at the tail end of Federer's career, Nadal was already near his peak, and Djokovic was coming in. Like, they would take a few titles away from maybe what Federer would have gotten. And yeah, no one's really competing against Djokovic now, so
mm-hmm.
it's yeah, it's a little unfortunate for Federer and Nadal that rivals to Djokovic have shown up, right? So
Yeah, 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 I would say that in terms of career titles, it's just I think it's interesting. Um, Number one overall is a surprising person, maybe I would say he's not considered to he's considered to be a long lasting player, but I would never consider him to be one of the greatest tennis players of all time. He's an American. Do you have any guesses who has won the most tour
Well, not just
titles?
opens, but any of the
Titles?
slams, right? Just
Yeah,
any tournament.
yeah, tournament titles in the open era. So like the
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is like
ATP tour.
is it American? Like Sampras or
Sampras is he won 64. He is one, two, three, four, five, six. He's tied for ninth overall.
like I don't think Agassi played enough
Agassi's a
to
little
be
bit
up there.
lower than Sampras. He's 160.
Yeah,
McEnroe is
McEnroe would be in there.
higher than Sampras. He won 77.
Really?
Number one is Jimmy Connors,
Oh, Jimmy okay, yeah.
109 ATP Tour events, and he won several Grand Slams. He won a Wimbledon. He won an Australian Open, two Wimbledons, and five U.S. Opens. So
Well,
he
so
was a
he was like around the same time as McEnroe, then, right? Didn't they
yeah. He was around the same
compete
time as
together?
McEnroe.
Then
Um,
Agassi came up like at the tail end of their careers.
Yeah, I remember Connors. He made like the U.S. Open final, I think, or semifinals when he was older, like 39 or something like that.
Yeah,
And so that was seen as like a big result. But then like now, like Federer and they're all playing well better like into their late
into their
30s.
40s, yeah, even,
Yeah.
right?
So yeah, but yeah, Connors is number one overall. Federer is number two with 103 titles. And then it's Ivan Lendl and Novak Djokovic tied for third at 94, and then Rafael Nadal has 92.
Wow.
So it's yeah, it's one of those things where yeah, I they've all won a bunch, and it's kind
Yeah,
of just
that's a lot of winning.
it's kind of who you prefer, and I
Yeah.
like for the eye test. That's why I like Federer,
Mhm.
and for like my personality test, Djokovic is
Also,
by far my least favorite
yeah,
of those three. So he is
of the
or
three, and maybe even further down the list, with other historical players,
yeah, like I
too.
like probably my one of my yeah I like of like the dick kind of players like John McEnroe I liked because
Yeah,
he was clever and like he was I don't know maybe it's also just because I don't know if I'm being maybe it's just because of when I grew up the Serbs were committing all this sort of ethnic cleansing violence. I tend to not like Serbian players because especially if they grew up like in the 90s and like all that like you know that's just maybe also part of my dislike for Djokovic
yeah.
being a Serb. But like it's
All
yeah.
right.
Like, if you were Croatian or something, maybe it'd be different. But or like I don't know. But it's I just have a I just don't care for his um personality. And
And I think the
he's
first time that I sort of like even really knew who he was kind of a clown. Was sort of like just showing that he could like imitate other players
yeah, he did that for a while
early
too. And it
on.
was
Yeah,
it seemed like he was doing it kind of as a well, it was kind of funny, but maybe not funny for a lot of the
yeah. But it was kind of a
players that were
gimmick anyway, though. It wasn't.
yeah.
It was like he was just trying to like show off and make a name for himself, but wasn't winning at that time though. Like, but maybe
Djokovic,
that maybe that was like a foreshadowing just the skills that he had by being able to like play as someone else and be reasonably good before he had his own game, and it was just sort of like showing that he could play reasonably well as someone else, and then figured out his own stuff, and then or
mm-hmm.
incorporated different other tennis players game to make his own game out of it. Maybe that was more of what he did anyway. But yeah, I just thought he was kind of a clown when I first saw who he
Yeah,
was
he
anyway.
was. He is the leading money winner, prize money at 169 plus million. Number one, Nadal is second with 134, and Federer is third with 131 ish million. So like they're, so part of it's also just there's more money as time goes on. So it's not like, but like those are
Yeah, well,
by
I'm
far.
sure Federer made a lot in sponsorships and stuff,
Mhm.
outside of the game.
Yeah. Federer is also still the oldest major title winner.
Yeah.
He was when he was 36 years old in 5 months when he won the Australian Open. Tied for second are Djokovic and Nadal. Nadal won the 2022 French Open at 36 years of age exactly, and Djokovic won the French Open at 36 years of age. So if one of them wins a tournament next year, that person will be the oldest major since Federer is retired and winning. Nadal is also on the list as one of the youngest major winners. He was 19 when he won his first Grand Prix. So he's one of the 5 youngest and one of the 5 oldest people to win a major.
Wow.
In terms of oldest finalists, Roger Federer in 2019 Wimbledon was 37, almost 38, and he's the second oldest finalist. And the oldest finalist was Ken Rosewall, 39 years, 10 months in 1974.
Hmm.
So anyway, yeah, tennis. We haven't talked much about tennis, but yeah, um, you know who won the women's French Open?
Nope, didn't hear.
Yeah, I think without Serena,
Yeah.
Swiatek won. So she was the number one seed. Um, and yeah, Iga Swiatek is
I always thought it was weird because it sounds like when they pronounce it like on the broadcast that it's like they say it more like Swiatek.
Swiatek. Okay,
It's
well,
almost
there's
like
an
there's an N in there too, but there
oh,
isn't an N
that's a little
there.
bit. I think there's a little Swiatek. I think that's right. I think Swiatek.
Yeah, that's how I've always heard it pronounced is with it's like Swiatek.
Swiatek. Okay, that's probably right. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like Valenza of the. I guess I'd only read Swiatek's name. Like
Yeah.
Valenza of the Polish independence movement or anti-communist movement. He didn't have an N either, but he is Walesa. But I guess um, one of the accent marks
Oh
gives
yeah.
an N sound. So
Okay.
Swiatek.
Yeah. I'd heard it pronounced that way, and but like repeatedly heard it pronounced that way, so I just
Yeah,
assumed that is how it
you're
was.
right. Yeah, I'm sure that's right. She's won 4 Grand Slams, Grand Slam titles, 3 French Opens, and a U.S. Open. So she's good, but it's one of those things where there's not. I think without Serena, without some of the other big names, like
Yeah.
it's not as interesting. I think
Yeah.
men's tennis, because it had like the huge stars for a while, has become more captivating to I'm sure to the actual tennis fan, like really who follows it, like it's probably just as good as ever. But for the
Yeah.
it's like golf without Tiger Woods was not as good, and I think tennis without Serena Williams or some of the big,
Yeah.
her big rivals that were
I think it's just harder for the
Justine
American
Henin
fans
or Anand
to.
Arden or Kim Clijsters or some of those bigger names of that of the
I do think it's
2000s.
harder for the American fans because there isn't a dominant American player really on
Mm-hmm.
either side right now. I think there's some really good young women's tennis players that are maybe going to be competitors, but
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah,
the
Coco Gauff and
yeah,
yeah,
and who else is there? There are a few other women's players that are pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are some, and I think men's. Yeah, there haven't really been any, probably since Andy Roddick, that has been um like really good. And Roddick was, of course, like passed by Federer,
Mm-hmm.
and like Roddick won, and then like
Fully
Federer started. I think
overshadowed.
he won the U.S. Open like in 03 or something. Then Federer won like in 04 and like won everything. And Roddick, like he had that almost beat Federer that won Wimbledon final, but couldn't, and that was like his last hurrah. And
Yeah.
he was never no, but he shouldn't feel too bad for him. He won the '03 US Open. I was right about that. I think he lost in the Wimbledon final, a very like 2009 Wimbledon, in 5 sets. That was when Federer lost the first set 5-7, then won 7-6, 7-6, lost 3-6, then won 16-14 in the final set, and beat Roddick. Yeah. Andy Murray was pretty good for a little while too. He was kind of the
Yeah,
fourth musketeer, but never quite. He didn't do it. He won Wimbledon. Like there hadn't been a British
right. Winner of the
winner of Wimbledon
the
for
Wimbledon. Yeah,
decades. So like got something like that off their backs. But yeah, yeah, I think partly like I guess men's tennis didn't have a great American, but it was still very popular because I think the stars were transcendent enough that it didn't matter
yeah.
if they're American or not.
Well, I think a lot of the U.S. fans kind of adopted Federer anyway
Yeah, Federer,
because
more so
his
than
English was very good,
yeah, it was better than Nadal's for
and
sure.
it seemed
Yeah.
like I think he lived here for a fair portion of a year
Hmm.
of like a typical year anyway, right? So
Yeah, Nadal, I think his English was never as good as Federer. He never quite seemed as Federer was like James Bond kind of playing
yeah,
tennis.
and I
He
think
was
that
that
he had that sort of air about him too, where it's like he might actually be an international spy. We don't know.
yeah. So he had that going. Like, and so people
Yeah,
who didn't like that, I'm sure would say, well, you like the workman like Nadal better. But I
sure.
think also I didn't Nadal's capri pants that he wore for a while also kind of took points away from me. Uh,
Yeah, I did like watching Nadal slide on clay though, like because
yeah.
he would really play into that, um, you know, not trying to like stop hard on without just use the clay, slide as far as you need to, and then use that to turn around anyway. Yeah, he his style of play on that surface at least anyway was always fun to watch anyway.
Yeah. They talk about the capri. Yeah, I looked up Rafael Nadal capri pants. There's a lot of articles on this.
Yeah, so
Capri.
you didn't increase your capri pants budget because
I
of
did not.
Nadal?
No, I did not. I did
Oh. It remained at $0 for your capri pants budget,
not. But yeah, and I just never.
pre
Yeah,
and
like
post Nadal.
yeah. I
Yes.
know. So maybe that was the fashion sense that I didn't care for Nadal as much. He
Yeah.
was. But yeah. I let And Djokovic, I just never warmed to.
Yeah.
And so, but speaking of never warming, we have the Royals. Is that better? That wasn't as good, but it wasn't as good as the crap. But the Royals, they haven't won anything since we last were on the air. They're still stuck at 18 wins. They lost again tonight, right, to the
Mhm.
Reds,
Yes.
and they lost 5-4
Yeah.
to the Reds. Um, what's going on with the Royals? Do they have any hope?
It certainly doesn't seem like it. Yeah, it's
18-49 right now.
been yeah, poor pitching performances. They seem to be able to score some runs, but they come up short every single time. Again, bullpen usage has been very not so great. Um, it seems like they always go to the wrong guy in the wrong in the scenario that they have. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, and the continuing of basically all of the free agents that they signed being not just not living up to what the expectation was, but just being terrible. Um, this week they ended up releasing or DFAing Jackie Bradley
Bradley Jr.
Jr.
Yeah, he was the. I guess I thought maybe he could revive his career a little bit. That didn't work out.
Sure. He had a good
But
spring, so it seemed like they
yeah,
maybe earned
I guess they're trying
a
stuff.
shot or something. But
But
I mean, the strategy from the team seemed to be let the kids play this whole season, and then they still ended up bringing in all these free agents that took away playing time from them, and then eventually they've had to like move on from each of them one by one. And I don't know. I don't know if it like hurt the growth of the team and some of these young players by limiting their playing time early, or if they just didn't want to make decisions and were hoping they could get trade value out of some of these veterans and then keep the young players around and maybe develop a little bit more at AAA. It just hasn't worked out at all,
yeah,
and
it's worked. It's been really bad. They've actually have been passed now by the Oakland A's. Oakland A's have won 7 in a row. They're 19-50, and the Royals are 18 and 49. So I guess technically, if they go
They're
1-1 in the next two,
virtually tied now. Yeah.
the A's have a 275 winning percentage, the Royals 269. So the Royals right now,
By percentages,
the percentages
worse
are
than the A.
last in the majors, and so this would qualify them next year to have the number one overall draft pick in the 2024 draft. Is this what the Royals are playing for? Do you think? Do they think that they is this like like the Astros? They famously kind of tanked it for a while
Hmm.
and then became a very good team recently because of all the young players that they acquired at the top of the draft. Is this? You think the Royals have never really been a team to really do that? Although they've had some really bad teams, but I think
It didn't
Hosmer
seem like
was
they
a
were
number two pick.
purposefully losing anyway.
Hochevar was number one overall. Hosmer was number two. I think Moustakas was number three. So like they've
Hmm.
been
They've
they've
had
been
some
up there
pretty
before.
high draft picks.
Yeah.
It
Do
didn't
you
seem like they were losing games on purpose. And this year, it almost seems like they're losing games on purpose because they really can't be this bad. But and I know you and I have talked a lot about this in the past too, about should the Royals change their draft strategy, stuff like this that we've tried to like say if we could tease out like if they've just not been very good at developing players, like maybe they've picked good players, but they haven't just panned out, or if they're just bad at drafting. And I think we've undertaken a little project here that may help us figure some of this out.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I think the draft's coming up in the end, I guess July this year, so we have a couple more weeks to think about it. But yeah, are the Royals just bad at drafting? Are they bad at something else? Or is this just a combination of being bad at a lot of things? But so how have the Royals? I guess, but the MLB draft is something of a crapshoot anyway, because it
yeah.
takes a few years at least for even good players usually to make it to the majors.
So that's always been my argument is I don't think teams should try to lose in baseball because it takes so long for a player to make it to the majors and be an impact at the major league level. Whereas like in football or basketball, NBA and NFL, the turnaround can be very quick. A last place NBA team with a number one player at the college level, they may be at least middle of the pack the next year, maybe just with a single addition. But
Mhm.
baseball, it's quite a long time to get to the majors, and I didn't realize quite how long it was to get to the majors until I started pulling some of this data together from Baseball Reference. Um, yeah, let's say just from the last two seasons combined, the 2021 and 2022 drafts, how many players do you think have actually had any playing time at all at the major league level from the last two drafts?
Two drafts. That's
Fine.
really fast. Like they'd have to probably be really high picks, or maybe really just like college ready, or maybe there's an injury, or it's like September call up. So like maybe like I remember Brandon Finnegan for the Royals
Yes.
was called up the year he was drafted for the playoff
Which is
race as a
really
reliever.
rare.
So
That is really
maybe
rare.
maybe there's been two or three total in the majors.
So from last year, so they've had a full year now too. So they've had, the last 3 months of the 2022 season, plus the first,
Hmm.
2 months of this season, 2+ months, I guess. Um, yeah, so just from last year, yeah, two players have made it to the majors, both from the Angels actually, which I thought was interesting, at least anyway.
Okay.
And they've been both have been have had some production too. They actually combined 1.2 WAR already from those two players, which is
Are they
really
both are they
surprising.
both pitchers? Or are they both?
I didn't actually look to see who they were. I probably shouldn't have said that because you're probably going to ask me about that. But I can find out. But even from the previous draft, the 2021 draft, if you add a whole other year, and just as a note, there are about 600 players drafted in each of the last 2 years. So these aren't a very tiny sample size. These are a total of 1,200 players between the last two drafts. But 10 players from the 2021 draft have made it to the majors.
Okay.
But
So it looks like, yeah, I'm looking at the Angels right now,
yeah,
last year. So I guess their first round pick, Zach Neto, shortstop.
Neto.
He has played 53 games already this year. He was
Yeah.
from Campbell University, so he's a college player. He's worth 1.8 WAR already. So he's the majority. He's had 171 at bats already.
Okay.
Uh, Seems to be like they're starting. I guess they're starting short. And they also have a pitcher, Ben Joyce, who was their third round draft pick. They didn't have a second rounder.
Hmm.
He's played in 5 games, 1 win, 4.5 ERA. So he's recently called up. So
Yeah.
their top two play. So it's their top two picks then. One shortstop, one pitcher.
Okay. Yeah, that I mean that is absurdly fast to make it to the majors. But it just thought it was interesting that there are two that have made it and they were both in the same team even. So
Yeah,
like the
and they
number
have
one and number two overall picks that made it, it was, two picks from the same team, which means they weren't in the same round even. Yeah. So
yeah, and it looks like the Angels have 2 picks from 2021 that also made it to the majors.
right.
Neither one has been as good. They're two pitchers, both worth between -1 WAR and plus. So one first round draft pick Sam Bachman, 11th round draft pick Chase Silseth, both college players. So I remember this was years ago, I guess. The last player I remember that was drafted and I think made it to the majors without going to the minor leagues was John Olerud. I think he didn't play in the minors at all. He went straight to he played for the Blue Jays and the Mets. I can't remember if it was for the Mets. I think it was for the Blue Jays. He started, and he didn't. I don't think of him as playing uh, with the minors at all. Yeah, it says he broke into MLB in 1989 without ever playing in the minors.
That's impressive. Yeah. So just go straight into the majors. Yeah, that's pretty good.
He played at Washington State, and so he was drafted. Let's say so he was drafted out of his junior year, I guess. It says, oh wait, after his junior, he was going to go to Washington for state for a senior year, but agreed to sign with the Blue Jays only after they promised that he would report directly to Toronto.
Hmm.
So
And
he
when
wasn't
was
going to
this?
sign unless he went straight. This is 1989. So
Okay.
um, in 1989, John Olerud he only played 6 games, but I guess he was drafted in '89, so it would have been like at the end of the season or something.
Right.
And but then he had 8 at bats, 3 hits and 8 at bats in 1989. But then he had a strong career. Basically from the beginning, he was never a huge power hitter, but he was
Yeah, it's
um,
solid all around hitter with a player all.
yeah 364 on base percentage his rookie year. Then in 1993, I think that was the year that Blue Jays won the World Series, or one of the years they won 2 in a row, 92, 93, I think. He batted 363, 473 on base, 599 slugging percentage, OPS plus of 186. Only finished third in the MVP ballot that year.
But he was
Behind,
only picked in the third round too. It wasn't.
yeah, he was behind Paul Molitor and Frank Thomas, 1993 MVP awards. Paul Molitor was also on the Blue Jays.
Well,
Frank Thomas was the unanimous pick because he had all the counting stats, it looks like.
yeah.
But he also had a very good year. But somehow
He
Molitor
only went seventh though.
hmm,
Frank Thomas was seventh pick.
overall.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like well, if you had redrafted that, he would be.
Oh yeah, for by far.
Yeah, that was the Ben McDonald #1 overall pick here. I remember that.
Yeah.
We're
Chuck
so old. We
Knobloch
are
was down there
1989.
later in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
44 WAR player down there.
Yeah, at the very end of he famously played for the Royals at the tail end of his career when he it was after he developed the yips when he couldn't throw
Yes.
from second base to first base and was moved to the outfield, I think.
Right. Yeah, didn't he hit a ESPN broadcaster's mother in this that was in the stands with a wild throw from short?
Yeah,
I just remember that was pretty funny. I mean,
he
the
never
story was funny anyway.
he played for so he played for the Twins early on, and he was solid for the Twins. And then he played for the Yankees and won a couple World Series with the Yankees, but then had that kind of meltdown. And then he played 1 year for the Royals in '02, and then never played again. So I guess playing for the Royals really soured.
Yeah, that must have been.
Yeah.
It was a late stop, and that was it. If you can't make it there, you're not going to make it anywhere else, I
It's
guess.
sort of like Rick Ankiel when he tried to play for the Royals. Like after his, he had the kind of yips as well as a pitcher. He couldn't throw it to home plate, and then he became an outfielder.
Right.
He was a decent-ish
Yeah. But he was a
outfielder,
pretty
but
good hitter though, so that really helped his case at least anyway. Because yeah, usually pitcher wouldn't move to a fielding position because they'd still have to hit. So
yeah,
yeah, he was always a pretty decent hitting pitcher, and turned out he was a better hitter when he wasn't pitching though, right? So
yes. So he
they
stopped pitch.
focus
So
on him.
he looks like he pitched in 1999. Started out rookie of the year almost in second place rookie of the year 2000, and then he only pitched a couple of times in '01 through '04, and then was basically a hitter.
Yeah, that sounds right.
But yeah, so
Yeah, it was.
back to the
Yeah,
Royals one.
I was surprised to see how long it really takes to develop players, because that concept of like tanking for a draft pick, it doesn't seem like that great of an idea if it's going to take that long to develop. Like you don't have, as a baseball team, 5 or 6 years to wait around for your savior, you would think, right? I mean, you're going to want to win games sooner than that. So what's the point in tanking now to maybe get a slightly better player that will help you 6 years from now? Seems like it, because
Yeah,
it seems like from pulling this draft data, it
6
seems
years
like
is
it's
the is
about
the is
5 to 6 years before the draft class has the same rough percentage of players making it to the major leagues as the previous draft classes.
yeah.
So
Maybe it's about timing. You would say, well, maybe after you can think, well, if 3 or 4 or 5 years our draft picks are going to make it up, we can also start supplementing with free agents by that point, and put money in at the same time. It's kind of predictable, and we can do it there and not waste money else other times or something. I think that's sort of what the Royals kind of did
it
when
seemed like
they had
that
all their draft picks kind of come up similar
together
times, and then
with
like
Hosmer and Moustakis and Dyson and Gordon. We're all
Salvi
within a
really
few
even,
years.
yeah.
Yeah,
Gordon and had been there a little while,
a little bit. Yeah,
but then like you bring in Lorenzo Kane, and you get
Escobar and
mhm,
right. Yeah, in the
and
trade.
the Shields
Thinking
Wade Davis trade, the idea of that. And so I guess it's sort of kind of what they did, but yeah, it seems to me maybe
that
what
that actually hurt their prospect concept though, right? Because they traded who they thought was their best prospect to get Wade Davis and James Shields, right? So
yeah, that trade. Will Myers
that was the Will Myers trade, yeah.
well, he was the best one
So
left, I think, because after Hosmer and
yeah,
Moose.
yeah. But that one was more about, I think, showing that they were willing to take on salary more
Mhm.
than anything else. And I think right now, there's no point in the Royals taking on any salary because they're not going to win games.
Yeah, it seemed
And so this is about trying to like restock your minor league system. And it seemed like a lot of the trades they'd made in the last year or two were to restock the low levels of the minor league system while they brought all the AAA guys up to the major league. And I don't quite see what they were doing, because it didn't seem like they were getting enough for some of the players they traded last year, especially like Benintendi. They got like A ball guys for him. And it seemed like if you trade a guy like that, you should be getting like, near major league ready players,
Yeah,
plural, not
it's
so far like you still need 3 years of development, guys that may or may not pan out, but guys that are like just about major league level.
yeah, it's one
And
of the things
that's
the
not what they
Royals
got at all.
were trying to do. It seemed like for a while they were trying to get near major league ready players, but they were like getting like high floor but maybe low ceiling players, and maybe now they're trying to get high ceiling and maybe boom or bust type of players.
Yeah.
And which one's better? Who knows? Like when they drafted, like was it 2014 or something, 15, when they drafted Christian Cologne as their first
Mhm.
round draft pick, he was seen as kind of a person who would definitely get to the majors, but maybe wasn't as
Yeah.
high ceiling player as some of the other
I
uh,
will say Christian Cologne
players.
may be maligned for his not panning out as being a Royal star. They would not have won the World Series without his performance, specifically in the
Yes,
playoffs and in the World Series game clincher, even too.
yeah. So let's look at that. Looking at that first round of the 20s, 2010. So he was picked fourth. So that
Yeah,
was the Bryce Harper year. So if there wasn't been first, he could have gotten Bryce Harper, who would have been monster no matter what. Second
you
was
think,
James.
or do you think the Royals would have ruined him?
No, nobody would ruin Bryce Harper. He was like on the cover of Sports Illustrated. He was 16. Like
Right.
he was a monster. And then Jameson Tylen. Talon. I can't remember how his name was pronounced. Tyone, yeah, Tyone, Jameson Tyone, from the Pirates, and then Manny Machado was third overall that
Yes.
year, and then the Royals took the loan. But like there were a lot of good players that like Yasmani Grandal was first rounder, Chris Sale was a first rounder,
13th overall.
Christian Yelich was a first rounder that year.
Yes. Future MVP.
Noah Syndergaard in the supplemental rounds.
Mm.
So there were some big names
Nick
in that.
Castellanos was a supplemental pick, too.
Yeah. So like it's one of those things. The Royals did not pick a good.
They did not end up with a winner in that group.
No, I guess they turned out. So of the top five, Cologne was by far the worst. Pomerantz was better, also in the
But
final.
even if you're looking at the draft, at the players that were drafted ahead of them, you'd think, well, shortstop went number 3, Manny Machado. Why would you take the second best shortstop next as the 4th pick rather than the best any other position out there that's still available? Right?
Well, I guess
I
you could.
think that kind of stuff is really dumb. Like if you're looking at it
Yeah.
from a team perspective as to what you want.
Well, maybe you could say, well, all the best players were shortstops. Like in the in like
No,
lower
that's
levels, like
the
you play
case.
your best player at shortstop usually like in the
Yeah.
infield. It's like any infielder, like that's third baseman, second baseman, they're going to be shortstop probably.
Yeah. But it was like outfielder, right-handed pitcher, shortstop, or 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that was the kind of a
You
Moneyball
think
kind of
there's got to
decision
be
before.
another pitcher, there's got to be another position player, something else, but just a shortstop. It just doesn't. To me, it makes no sense why
Yeah,
you would even consider that as your next pick.
Matt Harvey was also taken soon
Yeah,
after. Future Royal Matt Harvey.
yeah. I mean, even like the pick after Matt Harvey was Delino DeShields is a more like Royals type guy anyway, because he's like fast and could do some other things defensively too. Like you'd think that would be something that they would be
Mhm.
maybe more interested in than Christian Cologne.
And that was the Brett
So
Eibner was the second round pick that year.
yeah,
He was picked. He was kind of in between pitcher slash outfielder. They ended up
yeah,
putting him in the outfield. Um, there were some other like Drew Smiley was. There was some second round was is like it really fell off in the second round compared to that first round in 2010.
Andrelton Simmons is there in the second round too. Was a Gold Glove shortstop there in the. So like there are other shortstops in the draft that went later.
Yeah, so yeah, there's Simmons. Yeah, he
Yeah,
was he'd been on the prospect list for a long. Yeah, so yeah, he was like the one diamond of the second round. JT Realmuto was shortstop in the third round, so
yes.
he had a good career.
Hmm.
Um, so they
That's
did not
really
pick the second.
it
They did
from
not
this
get the second
third
best
round.
shortstop. Fourth round, James Paxton, I guess, but there's not really much in the fourth. It's one of
Yeah.
those things that it really does fall off, but like it's very
There will be
random.
some, fluky player later that will be, will have been valuable too that you'd find. So I mean, but like, your odds of your number one pick being great, it's not a guarantee. And so, tanking a whole season for a not guarantee doesn't seem like a good idea to me at all. From a business perspective, from a team fan perspective, it does not make sense. And I don't think there's anything that, a Royals executive could tell me that would make me understand how it benefits anybody at all.
Well, maybe if you see, well, there's Bryce Harper coming up this round. We know there's like a one in a like a generational kind of player, we think. Or do
Yeah,
you think baseball is still too unpredictable?
I do.
Like in football right now, I think because people say Caleb Williams from USC, from Oklahoma, followed Lincoln Riley to USC, is like the number one quarterback.
Yeah.
Next year is going to be better than any of the ones that were
Well, I
here this
mean,
year.
we
Is
spent a
he?
lot of time talking about this year's NFL draft. And
Mhm.
and I mean, even the teams weren't sure which player was the number one pick this
Yeah,
season, right? In the NFL, right? So
yeah. Like sometimes, like there is a clear pick, but oftentimes that clear pick is not going to be the best player taken.
true.
Like like in 2017, Mahomes is by far the best player, but
Was seen as
Miles
maybe the
Miles
third,
Garrett was the number one
fourth,
overall
fifth
pick.
best quarterback
Yeah,
at projection.
he was seen as third or fourth by most.
Yeah.
Um, I think one guy had him second best. I think actually Mel Kiper had him as a second best player.
Yeah.
And but yeah, he was picked. It's actually second after Mitchell Trubisky. But yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, even like NFL, it's you don't know. And again, it's say, well, is it drafting? Is it development? Is it coaching? Is it something else? And the Royals aren't very good at any of it. And it's easy to think, well, maybe we can talk about more as the draft gets closer. Since we've been talking about the NFL, do you want to talk a little bit about the Chiefs? Or
I've got
we
two
have
quick
baseball something
things here
first?
before we
Okay.
move on though. I was gonna, yeah, we are pulling some of this data together from Baseball Reference about the drafts and the Royals compared to the rest of the league in the draft. I think we're gonna be talking about that over the next couple weeks. Presenting some of the results that we have. We'll find out of this anyway. We'll try to answer that question. Are the Royals bad at player development or picking players or both over the next few weeks? There was a trivia thing I was going to bring up too that I thought was interesting from a completely unrelated story. It was a college baseball player from Stanford threw 156 pitches in a
Ooh.
game this week, and it made me curious to know what the major league record was for pitches thrown in a game. Mike, here's my trivia question for you. They started keeping the stat officially only in 1988. Okay.
Oh, okay. So I was
So,
thinking probably like
and don't worry
maybe
about
Cy
anything
Young
prior
pitched a
to
24
1988.
inning game in
Yeah.
1906 or something.
Don't worry about that. We're going to talk about 1988 uh was when they started keeping individual pitch stats on record for every game.
Mhm.
The most pitches in a game came in a Pirates pitcher 1993 through 172 pitches in a game. Can you name this pitcher? Was just that, or I have some other
Okay.
clues I can lead
I
you
have a
up so you can
guess.
get
I
it.
don't know if he played for the Pirates then, but he
Yeah.
was a pretty good pitcher for the Pirates in the late 80s, early 90s, I think. Was it Doug Drabeck?
Well, it was not.
Okay.
It wasn't him. But you
Okay.
will know who he is, though, at least anyway.
Um,
We think, though, throwing that many pitches probably wasn't a super hard throwing pitcher. See if that may be
ooh.
a clue that may help.
Was Jamie Moyer with the Pirates back then?
It's good thinking, but not Jamie Moyer. This
I
player probably had his most meaningful years with the Boston Red Sox, though.
Oh, who's that guy? Tim Wakefield. Tim Wakefield.
Wakefield, yeah. So the next clue is going to be is like he's not just not necessarily a hard thrower, he's actually a knuckleballer.
Knuckleballer. That's yeah.
I was like, that was going to be the next clue.
So. Knuckleballer. So knuckleballer.
I didn't want to go to that yet. I was gonna.
But that was good. That was,
yeah.
I pulled out Wakefield. I couldn't. I was like, who? Yeah, Tim Wakefield. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. 172 pitches where he went. He pitched, I believe, 10 innings in that game. 10 plus innings start. The Pirates against the Braves. But they're in the same article. There is a discussion about. I guess it's technically unofficial, but Nolan Ryan once threw 235 pitches.
I was gonna guess Nolan Ryan before you said
1974 game where he had 19 strikeouts in 15 innings pitched.
How many?
He pitched 13 innings of a 15 inning game, so he got a no decision, but he got 19 strikeouts, which is the second by total, the second highest strikeouts in a game total.
So Wakefield had 100 and was 58. You said
72, 174,
172. I think
172.
Okay, 172.
Yeah, 172.
Okay, I was looking up. Yeah, he didn't pitch the whole game either. Apparently,
correct. Yeah,
Doug Drabek.
It was over a 10 inning game too.
I just looked up Doug Drabek. He pitched his last year for the Pirates was 1992. He got traded to Houston or went to Houston for 94.
I mean, it was pretty good to pull him out of there too. So, yeah.
Jamie Moyer was pitching for.
Seattle.
He never pitched for the Pirates. Jamie Moyer in 1993. He was with the Orioles.
Oh, well, this is the Orioles then. Okay, all right.
He started out with the Cubs. So Cubs 3 years. 2 years Texas, St. Louis 1991, then Baltimore for 2.5 years, Boston for a half season, Seattle for I think you probably most remember from for Seattle.
That's what I remembered him from. Wasn't Seattle? When was he in Seattle?
From 96 through 2006.
Okay, that's
and then he pitched.
That's a full 10 years.
And then he finished for his last few years with the Phillies. Oh, and then he came back at age 49 and pitched for the Rockies in 2012.
That's right.
So he was 47 when he pitched. So I think he was 45 when he pitched for the Phillies in 2008. They won the World Series in 08, I think.
Yeah.
He was 16-7 at age 45. Wow. 3.71 ERA.
How did he do in that year he came back?
He was 2-5 in 2012. He was 2-5. So he didn't pitch at all in 2011. He was in 2012. He was 2-5 for Colorado, 5.7 ERA, only 53 innings.
But I mean, no one was good in Colorado.
Yeah, 10 starts
in that era anyway. So
he was still a starter at that point. So he won. So Jamie Moyer won 269 games in his career, lost 209. I think we looked up the current win leader in baseball is Justin Verlander, right?
Oh, I think that sounds right. Yeah,
he's at 246. And Greinke is second with 224. Max Scherzer's 206. Clayton Kershaw 205. Wainwright 197.
It doesn't seem like Greinke's going to be getting a whole lot of wins this year either. So
and Cole Hamels, I didn't realize Cole Hamels was still playing.
No, I didn't know either. Yeah,
Johnny Cueto, Garrett Cole, Madison Bumgarner. Bumgarner's only 33. Is that right?
I guess so.
He hasn't been. He's fallen off a cliff this year. 0-3, 10.26 ERA.
Is Greinke, 'the innings pitched leader, active?
1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 29 30 31 32 33 34 35 36 37 38 39 40 41 42 43 44 45 46 47 48 49 50 51 52 53 54 55 56 57 58 59 60 61 62 63 64 65 66 67 68 69 70 71 72 73 74 75 76 77 78 79 80 81 82 83 84 85 86 87 88 89 90 91 92 93 94 95 96 97 98 99 100 101 102 103 104 105 106 107 108 109 110 111 112 113 114 115 116 117 118 119 120 121 122 123 124 125 126 127 128 129 130 131 132 133 134 135 136 137 138 139 140 141 142 143 144 145 146 147 148 149 150 151 152 153 Yes.
He's got more than Verlander.
Yeah, 33-18, Verlander 32-02. Interesting. Do you think Greinke is a Hall of Fame pitcher?
I think he's probably right on the edge, if not in. He's got a. Does he have a championship? Maybe he doesn't have a championship.
Did he win with Houston? Or did they? Well, he was in the World Series a couple of times, I think.
I don't think he won though when he was there.
Yeah, no championship. He's got a Cy Young with the Royals.
Yep,
He had a season in with the Dodgers where he was 19-3, 1.66 ERA, and got second in the Cy Young. I think Jake Arrieta won it that year, but he should have
that's
won.
crazy.
But I think
Man,
he's the current he's the current
what did the
loss
what
leader,
did
I
the
believe.
first do?
Arrieta had a good year. I looked that up somewhat recently. Arrieta had a pretty
Yeah.
good, had a
He was
similar year, but
22-6 with a 1.77 year. So he had more losses, 3 more wins, but 3 more losses. Arrieta did.
yeah.
His ERA was slightly higher.
Was that the year that the Cubs
Arrieta had
won?
thrown 3 shutouts. Yeah, their stats are really similar. I guess
Was
he
that
had 3 more wins. 3 more wins, so that's enough, I guess.
yeah, was that the year the Cubs won? No, it was 2015. So that was the year the
15.
Royals won.
Those are the Royals one, yeah. Cubs
Yeah,
won the
so
next year though.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
But 19-3 is a crazy record.
Yes.
But when he won for the Royals, did he only have 10 wins?
He
No,
was
he had 16 wins.
16, which was seen as not very many,
Yeah.
but he had a 2.16 ERA. He was under 2 for most of that season
Yeah.
for a really bad Royals team in 2009.
Yeah, because he had 3 fewer wins than Felix Hernandez, Justin Verlander, and CC Sabathia that year. But
That
yeah,
was his.
his ERA was almost a half point lower than
Mhm.
well, Felix Hernandez was 2.49. Greinke was 2.16. But yeah. Well, anyway. Um you would talk about a little bit about the NFL offseason?
Yeah, we have a little bit of Chiefs news. I guess maybe non-Chiefs news now because Frank Clark signed with the Denver Broncos. I think there was some hope maybe the Chiefs would try to bring Clark back on a low money deal, what they had released him earlier. So that's not surprising that he
Yeah.
went to Denver. They could probably pay him more than Chiefs can with their salary cap concerns. Do you think um, with Frank Clark as an addition, and do you think Denver has a chance to beat the Chiefs this year, or are they still with Sean Payton and some of their they've had a good defense there for a
Mhm.
while. I think Vance Joseph um, is back in Denver, but he's the defensive coordinator. He's not the head coach anymore.
Okay.
Um, do they have? You think the Broncos will? Maybe we'll say you think the Broncos have a chance to take one out of the 2 games against the Chiefs
I
this
mean,
year?
there's always a chance with division rivals, but there's no reason to bet against Mahomes and the Chiefs and Andy Reid, really. So they've had like a stranglehold on the division pretty much for uh, you know, the better part of a decade at this point.
They've won 15 straight against Denver, the third longest streak of any team against a single opponent.
That's pretty crazy.
The last time the Broncos won against the Chiefs was September 2015.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah. And that was the year.
I mean, that's a long time for like college opponents to, meet in football. We really play once a year and maybe not even every year in certain conferences anyway, right? So,
That
um,
was in Arrowhead. That was the year that the Broncos won the Super Bowl.
yeah,
And that was the last year Peyton Manning's career. That was actually later in the season. Actually, the Chiefs, I think, knocked Peyton Manning out because he was so ineffective and was replaced by Brock Osweiler most of the end at the end of the year
no,
uh, that year. But yeah, so Peyton Manning was the quarterback when the Broncos last beat the Chiefs.
Oh
And I
yeah.
guess
So how many quarterbacks have they had since? How many? I wonder if that's what we can look up later. But yeah, how many different quarterbacks have faced the Chiefs from the Broncos in those 15 starts? Then have we seen 10 different QBs? It may be up in that area, right?
yeah, so in 2015, Osweiler started 7 games, but I don't know if he started any of the games against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Trevor Siemian, Paxton Lynch in 2016 started games. Simeon, Osweiler, Lynch, 2017. Case Keenum, all of 2018.
Yeah.
2019 had Flacco, Drew Lock, Brandon Allen. 2020 was Locke, Jeff Driscoll, Brett Rippon. And that was also the game Philip Lindsay actually was technically the starting quarterback when they had no quarterbacks.
That's right.
2020. And it was Bridgewater, Locke, and then Russell Wilson. Brett Rippon also started a couple. Like, yeah,
You were already up over 10
they've had
names
they've
listed
had
across the
they've had as primary starters, if you include Osweiler as the primary starter,
yeah.
one time 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wilson is their 7th primary starter since um, since Peyton Manning.
Yeah. But that's, what? It's 2015, so we were talking about
Basically
basically
a new
7
starter every
years,
year.
right? Yeah, so it's a
So
different
Wilson's
starter.
basically the only one that's kind of guaranteed as a repeat.
Yeah. Man, that's
Yes,
crazy.
he could go
Yeah.
down. Um, other I don't know what other Chiefs news was that I think I saw that Clyde Edwards-Helaire was sort of questioned because he didn't show up at the Super Bowl parade, but he had a prior commitment and was talking about kind of being enthusiastic for this year's season, and that he's I think maybe trying to probably play, I would guess, for his next contract, probably not with the Chiefs for next year to look good. So he seems like he's like maybe the Chiefs will have if Edwards-Helaire is healthy, it seems like they have 3 solid running backs now with Pacheco and
Yeah.
kind of McKinnon
Yeah.
as the top. Maybe I don't know who. It's hard to say who maybe the order of that is going to be.
Yeah.
But I thought it was good to hear that it wasn't like Edwards-Helaire was upset that he didn't play. He was still coming back from the injury, and he had said
Yeah.
that if he was going to play, he was probably going to start as wide receiver for the Chiefs
That's
because there were
crazy.
so many wide receivers that were hurt going into because in that Cincinnati game they all went down, and then they were there was question, well, is Tony going to make it? Is Hardman going to play?
Right.
Um, you know, basically, I think MVS was the only healthy
Right.
receiver at that point. But
But Kelsey's the only one they actually need, though, right now.
yeah, it seems like at least as long as they have Kelsey. And I heard Kelsey's he said he wasn't going to retire after this year. He's going to play at least a couple more years. So,
Good to hear.
other NFL news: Dalvin Cook got released. Do you think the Chiefs are going to pick up another running back?
I don't think so. But yeah, no, I mean, it'd be interesting, but I seriously doubt the Chiefs will have the funds to go after somebody like that, because isn't he due somewhere around
He's,
10 to
he's
15 million
he
dollar
wants,
range?
yeah, I'm sure he's still pretty much in the prime of his career. Unlike maybe
Yeah.
Zeke Elliott, who's probably kind of washed up, or at least maybe just as a short yardage back at this point. Dalvin Cook is still one of probably the top 5 to 10 running backs,
Hmm.
maybe higher, maybe 5 running backs in the league.
Yeah.
But yeah, Minnesota got real. It seems a little strange that Minnesota's releasing a lot of their players, since it seems like
Yeah.
they got kind of lucky last year being so as good as they were, and now with Rodgers out of Green Bay, it seems like the division is theirs if they really want it, but it seems like they're kind of letting Detroit um, move up
Yeah.
their division. So I don't maybe Minnesota is sneakily tanking, and hopefully they want to get Caleb Williams or some quarterback next year after Cousins.
Maybe.
I don't know what
So
they're
you,
doing.
you don't expect them to be like winning in the last minute of every game this year,
Yeah, no, that
like they
were they
did
not were
last
they
season?
like 10-0 or something in 1-score
Yeah,
games?
something like that. They kept like winning these like improbable games. Like, even one game they were behind by like 4 touchdowns or something, right? In the and made up that entire deficit in like the second half even. So yeah,
Yeah, they won 11 one-score games.
that's insane. Yeah.
They were 11-0 one-score games.
Wow. Not bad.
Um, and speaking of maybe free agents, one of the big free agents still was going to be DeAndre Hopkins. And Buffalo was rumored as a DeAndre Hopkins destination, but now I think it seems like Stephon Diggs might not have been too happy about trying to get DeAndre Hopkins because he's holding out again at training camp, something he likes to do. Do you think if Stephon Diggs, uh, do you think the Bills are maybe less likely this year than last year to make a good playoff run? Are they kind of at the end of their window, or what's going on in Buffalo?
Yeah, it probably, yeah, fully depends on how healthy Josh Allen can stay for this season. It seemed like he, took that elbow injury towards the end of the season and was never quite the same after that one particular hit, at least anyway. And maybe, Diggs second half of the season then suffered because of that too. Um, yeah, I mean, until Buffalo drops, 5 or 6 games at the start of the season, I think you're going to have to see him as a threat, right? Is that how you'd see that too?
I think so. I think
Yeah,
so. Yeah, it all depends. Like, it all depends on Allen, and
yeah,
I think now his division's gotten tougher. I think the Dolphins, if Tua is healthy, are a pretty good team. Who knows about Rodgers? Like, it was
yeah,
like for a couple of years, it seemed like the Bills had an easy division, and that was one of the reasons they were
right.
good. And also, they didn't have to pay very much for Josh Allen when he was really good, and now they do. So I think it's kind of this is probably the last year that like Bengals also will have uh, ability to kind of do whatever they want because Burrow's going to get paid too. So I think this is last year maybe was Allen's best shot, but maybe you could say going if he's healthy going forward, if all of the AFC quarterbacks are no longer on rookie deals, the
Hmm.
playing field kind of evens, and
Yeah,
maybe a couple years down the road, Buffalo could be back. But yeah, I think maybe Buffalo's best chance was last
maybe.
year, and they and then Allen got hurt, and we don't like you said we don't know the extent of his injury. Maybe it's worse than what we thought, or they thought because it was like a Tommy John kind of seeming
Hmm.
injury, and Brock Purdy got surgery for it, and it doesn't seem like Allen did. So
Yeah, I think he avoided it maybe 2 different times, even like one other time earlier in his career that Josh Allen maybe could have or maybe should have in some ways. Gone ahead and had the surgery, but yeah, and I don't think Purdy had to have the full replacement anyway. I think they just like stabilized it,
hmm
added something alongside of the ligament to,
mm,
help hold it in place without having to actually do the full replacement. So he's only supposed to miss, 6 months instead of more or less 18 months to 2 full years,
yeah,
which is
and
the
this was
typical like Tommy John surgery recovery timeline.
you had said, well, we worry about Allen his long term health
Yeah.
with being a running quarterback, but I guess in this way, this injury was not a running quarterback injury; it's just a typical quarterback injury that can happen to anyone. So like, it can happen to Mahomes or Burrow or like happen to Purdy. Like so, like it's just one of those things. You never quite know either in just
Right.
on injury luck. And so yeah, I
Yeah, because that actual injury happened when he was I believe, was in the pocket even, and he just had his arm hit as he was throwing, and it like pulled
yeah
his arm back. So
yeah it wasn't like a risky or unwise kind of play
right,
like um one of the Jimmy Garoppolo injuries was a risky kind of unwise play that he got. I think this was against the Chiefs actually. He got hurt, like he hurt his knee, like trying to run out of bounds or like give a guy a hit at the end while he was going out of bounds
yeah,
when the 49ers were down like by 25 points to the Chiefs. And um that was maybe Mahomes' first year as a starter, I think, if you remember that game.
Yeah.
That was when we had that first kind of whirl around big touchdown pass.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I Diggs is always, it seems like he's sort of a malcontent, and he is kind of a wide receiver kind of diva type character, and he's
Yeah.
not happy ever. And I think having Hopkins there would, they don't really have a
I
really
mean,
good
yeah,
second.
that'd be a lot of ego to balance for a coach.
Yeah, but they don't have like a second, like they don't have like two really top. Like Gabriel Davis does very well against the Chiefs, but he doesn't, like, it seems like he doesn't do that well against the other teams the way he does against the Chiefs, and like
Yeah.
they don't have the like they don't have the weapons that Cincinnati has on offense.
Yeah.
It's mostly is Allen, and so who knows? But we'll see what happens. We have much more time to discuss the offseason. We've really kind of gone long, I think, today, longer than we thought.
Yeah.
Should we wrap up the Morning Trek Power Hour
I
for
think
this
so.
week?
Yeah. The warning
All
track
right,
power
hour,
2 hours.
2 hours. Yeah, we'll see how long this one is. Maybe it'll be like the um, Tim Wakefield most pitches in a game. This might be our longest time in a while. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe it'll be split into 2 parts or something. Even who knows?
oh yeah, yeah, we'll see. We haven't done that before, even though we've been long. But usually it's been like NFL season. We have a lot of games to talk about. This is we're just uh,
Yeah.
scrounging for interesting topics and sometimes finding them.
Well, there were just so many championships to talk about.
Yeah,
That was like the first big segment anyway. So
yeah, championship. We had the French Open, we had Belmont, we had the NFL, I mean NHL and NBA finals. So we,
yeah, and the French Open too, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Did you
yeah.
say that? Or did you already
I
say
think I
that?
said that.
No,
I meant to
sorry.
say it, but I didn't say it. Well, since we already remember what we're saying or remembering to say, we probably
It's
should
time.
sign out. It is getting late here in the East, also pretty late in the Midwest, and that tells us that we should wrap things up. But you will probably be listening to us probably earlier, unless you use us to fall asleep too. Like I know so many of you might, because of our droning voices and but maybe our soothing
Wilson
sort of
Jones.
dulcet tones, as they say. Um, at any rate, I am Dr. Michael Werman. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We are the Warning Check Power Hour. Please like and or subscribe to our not so little now today podcast slash YouTube channel, and we hope that you will find something to enjoy in the aftermath of the the NBA and NHL seasons. We only have one major American sport going on right now. That's baseball. And if you're a Royals fan, there's not a whole lot to cheer about. But hopefully, there's something you can find that's interesting. Um, we didn't even talk about the PGA merging with the LIV golf tour. I guess we can always talk.
Bonus segment next time.
We haven't really gotten too much into golf here on the Power Hour, but
Sport.
if we're really waning in terms of power, we might have to do something. But at any rate, that's all. That's a discussion for next week and for the future. In the meantime, we'll just wish you a good day.